Hey everybody, welcome to Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. My name is Reed with Best Made Videos. We are a wedding videography company based out of West Seattle, Washington, and I am so excited today to be joined. And I've been bugging Steven about this, I think literally since like the first week or two on the podcast. I said, I need to get you and Amanda on and we need to talk. And you guys are always just crushing it and busy and shooting weddings and everything else. And it's Steven and Amanda of Lloyd Photographers, and I want to thank you so much for coming on. And I know that this has been quite the week for you guys, and we're dealing with injuries going into wedding season, and it's quite stressful. So why don't you say hi, introduce yourselves, and tell us who you are and what you guys do.
Yeah, so I'm Amanda.
And I'm Steven.
We are Lloyd Photographers. We're wedding photographers. We're based in Gig Harbor, and we shoot weddings all over the Pacific Northwest, and kind of really all over the world, really.
All over the world, yep, absolutely.
And so I think the first time we ever met was back at the Rainiers game for the South Sound. I think we did a meetup a couple years ago. And it is like you guys are just kind of synonymous with you're always working, you're always shooting, you're always doing something. It just seems that way. And especially, I mean, I follow on social media and stuff, but it just seems like everyone's always talking about you guys. So why don't you kind of describe, obviously a husband and wife, photography team, but like, what is your style? Where do you guys kind of look for and just kind of generally describe kind of how you approach a wedding day?
Yeah, so we tend to tell our couples that we describe ourselves as storytelling is our style. So we try to do a classic, more light and airy edit, and really photograph the day from the last stages of getting ready, through the formalities of the reception. But what I think is really fun is that when Steven joined me full time, he took over like that groom side of the day that tends to kind of get left out a little bit. And that just makes it more fun for the couples. I don't know. What do you think?
Definitely makes it more fun for me because I get to hang out with the guys in the morning. You know what I mean? And so we have a great time, and I get to tell their side of the story too, as they're getting ready, as they do their final toast with their boys and all that stuff, and get to do the cufflinks and all their shoes and the ties and all that fun stuff. And I do get to help them with their boutonnieres, and I've learned a lot of helpful things that are not photography as well.
Yeah,
that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's kind of a good word, just kind of fun to describe. I mean, obviously working alongside you guys and, following, all the kind of shenanigans, for lack of a better word, kind of online. But it does really seem like, besides obviously trying to capture like, timeless, beautiful images and, obviously do a good job of that kind of coverage, it is a really fun thing. Do you guys, is that kind of the feedback that you get from couples, and what kinds of reactions do you get from them, when they get their photos and after the day and kind of working together?
Yeah, I think for me, we want couples to have a really good experience. I know when Steven and I got married, we didn't have that necessarily. Right. No offense, Mom. But we want our couples to trust us. And I feel like we end up doing a lot more for them on wedding day than just, providing them good images, but also being like their go-to for all sorts of funny things. It's always funny to see like, going through the photos and the guys, Steven's getting like pictures of them and they're like on YouTube trying to figure out how to do a tie. It kind of blows my mind how many people don't know how to do that. But we try to be more their friends. I think my mom used to always say like, don't forget that ultimately you're providing them a service. Not everyone's going to want to be your best friend. But I really love when we become good friends with our couples. I feel like that. Yeah. And it makes it a lot more personal that way.
And I know for me, I definitely like being there with the guys in the morning. And, when I got married, I had no idea what to expect on wedding day.
Sure.
And I feel like that's not maybe the majority of the consensus, but still somewhat of the consensus. And so I can help the guys with, hey, this is going to happen at this time and just be ready for this. And
kind of being like,
don't get hangry and all those cool things that, they might not be ready for.
That's like, because then obviously being the husband-wife team, having gone through it, like you're really able to, and I do think that's a great point, especially it's like the guys, like they don't, I mean, usually it's the girls that are kind of planning and doing a lot of like our groom yesterday. I mean, James, bless his heart, but like he's just there, and so it is nice, right? Where if you're there kind of helping him get his boutonniere and stuff on, you can be like, all right, man, this is what you're going to look for.
Yep. And definitely helping the boys get ready, like what to know for photos and all that too. So it's not some, weird thing whenever we're all doing photos together.
So do you guys, and I don't know if I know the answer, do you guys work together like all the time, or do you ever, is it?
All the time, yeah.
So talk about kind of that dynamic and how, obviously you play off each other and then with them and but having kind of that chemistry of you guys always there together.
Gosh, it's an awesome experience for us. So I started the business full time. It's been almost 10 years now. So I'll shoot close to 400 weddings this year. And I think Steven's coming up on like 300.
Getting close.
Yeah. So what do you think?
It's awesome working with each other. I will say, like, the cool part is like I go in with the guys in the morning, she goes in with the girls, and we separate, and we got our cool watches and stuff, and we can communicate and with each other, and I can be like, hey, you guys ready? Yeah, we're ready. Let's bounce. And so, there's never a lapse in time or anything, lapse communication. That helps with us. And then the respect thing, we're always know that we're going to have 100% each other respect. For each other, working with each other. We know that when we're at a wedding, and no matter what happened beforehand or whatever, that stays there until after the wedding, or it's normally not even.
Yeah, I know. I think going into it, like, a lot of people have asked us, like, how do you work together at home and everything? And it's, it's definitely a balance, trying to figure out what works best for us, and always communicating and making a schedule that gives us both time with the kids and time together with the kids. It's definitely a balance, but we've really enjoyed it. And I feel like come wedding day, now that Steven shoots with me all the time and has for, almost like 5 years now, it makes it feel like we're just hanging out with another couple. So we actually really enjoy it. I think there's maybe been one time where right before a wedding we were down each other's throats, and it was literally because we could not find parking for his gigantic truck, and so it was like, oh my gosh, it's so frustrating. But outside of that, it's actually been a really fun experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did you guys meet? Walk me through that.
Oh my gosh. So I was a senior in high school. Talk about a long time ago. Steven had just got back from deployment, so he was in the Army before he became a photographer with me. And I did running start in high school, so we met. I was in line to get registered for a class at community college, and he was there for a class with the Army. And so that's where we met, and it's pretty much been...
I just went up to her and started talking to her and got a date with her, and that was it. That's all she wrote.
I remember when I was telling my family about it, and my brother was like, I want to see his driver's license. He looks too old for you. We're only 3 years apart, but he's just got back from deployment, and I was still a senior in high school. It's funny, but
it was only a 3-year age difference. But at the time, it was a big deal because I had just came home from combat. So it was,
at the time,
it would seem like a big deal, but now it's not quite a big deal anymore.
Well, absolutely, yeah. No, 3 years back when you're in, high school, college is that seems like a lifetime, and now you're it's not even anything. It's fun.
For family members.
So then how did it kind of go about photography? Obviously, Amanda said you kind of started it first, but had you always been interested in photography, or how did that kind of come about? What did you do before kind of starting and doing that?
So for me, I went to Washington State to do public relations, but my grandpa was an incredible photographer and a dentist, kind of a funny combo. And my dad just always had an amazing eye for photography. So it's kind of always been in my blood, so to speak. And then when Steven was stationed in Korea, I was really interested in pursuing it full time. And so I just kind of went for it, and then eventually had to kind of give up my PR job, which was great. And then for Steven,
for me, I was in the Army and I was ready to get out. We had Maddox, and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. And about a year before I got out, a man bought me a camera. I'd always knew that I wanted to help with the business. I just wasn't sure if I was ever going to shoot or not. But a man bought me a camera about a year before I got in the Army, and I started practicing, playing around with it, and then I was pretty good by the time we did our first wedding. But as soon as I got out of the Army and I did that first wedding, I was done. I was hooked. And now my favorite part is the shooting part, and all the business stuff, is fine. But I definitely love to shoot more than anything.
Yeah, what is it about weddings so that you think kind of drew you to it?
Weddings are a happy moment in people's life, and I definitely have had a lot of ups and downs in our life. We personally we've lost a child, and so we've had a lot of downs. And I feel like going to weddings and seeing people at their happiest moment and photographing those things it brings us a lot of joy and a lot of fulfillment. And whenever you're doing something that you love and it's fun, it's easy to do it.
Sure.
Yeah. and it's something we love. And we're tired at the end of the day, but we love it.
And Amanda, when you kind of started doing the photography, were you going to focus on weddings, or did you just kind of think, this is how did that kind of mindset go of getting kind of, because I mean, now like, you're kind of all in on, doing, you guys do, however many tens and tens of weddings a year. So how did that kind of start?
For me, I think ultimately I always wanted to do weddings, but when you're first starting out, you kind of do a little bit of everything, kind of take what you can get sort of thing. But it's actually kind of a funny story. So I don't even know if Kristen even knows this, but Kristen Honeycutt is a friend of mine, amazing photographer, and she actually shot a wedding of my mom's best friend's son. I would say it was like 12 years ago, probably. And at the time, I was getting more like curious about shooting weddings and things, and so going to that wedding and kind of watching her, so to speak, kind of gave me like more interest in it. And then I did a little bit of everything until I could pursue doing just weddings. And I still do from time to time, newborn sessions and family sessions for our couples, which is so neat to watch them go from engagements to wedding to getting to see their babies. I love that. Yeah.
And then kind of starting the business, is that, because I always kind of ask people, like, was that like a big leap? I mean, some people have like entrepreneurship in their families, or, maybe their parents did something or what, like the whole idea of like starting the photography company and being like, this is what I'm going to do. Like what kind of inspired that kind of, obviously the leap from like doing it to actually trying to do it full time?
I was actually in the Army, and I remember she actually started when I was in Korea, but when I came home and we were at Fort Hood, I was in the Army, and I was supposed to be the one leaving in the middle of the night and stuff. And she would be getting up to shoot like soldiers' homecomings, and she, and then she would be doing portrait sessions in the day. So she was she bootstrapped from one camera to the next and upgraded cameras.
My dad was
just amazing at it. Actually,
my dad actually was a wedding DJ. So I think that's kind of where maybe that love for weddings came from. I used to like go to shows with him as a kid, and he used to always say at the end of the day, your couple remembers that they had a really good time, and at the end of the day, they have their photos and their video to remember the wedding. So that, and then my grandpa was a dentist and ran his own practice and had lots of people under him, and so I definitely think like the entrepreneur side was always kind of
for her. For me, definitely that was the hardest part to get used to.
But to leave like a really good job and pursue it full time was scary. But it definitely it was easy for me in some ways because Stephen was still in the military, so we had an income that we could count on and insurance that we could count on. But it was definitely terrifying when he got out to join me full time, and then the business became our only income.
Well, yeah, I'd have to say too, especially being in the Army and like where it is a little more kind of structured, obviously, and then to kind of our world, it's flux, and I mean, especially you guys with kids and stuff, and we're trying to do this during nap time. I mean, what was that kind of transition like, for you coming from this world of like, this is what we're doing all the time to like, we got to kind of figure it out now.
Thank goodness Amanda was there. Oh my goodness. But in the beginning, it was a lot for me because even before I was in the military, I went to military school. So I'd had a lot of structure and regiment my whole life. But Amanda was there to let me kind of do my thing and, let me experience my freedoms. And then, whenever I'm like, oh, I can't, that's a little too much, be there, be like, yeah, or whatever, help me out.
Grow out your hair.
Grow out my hair, grow out my beard. So let me do all the freedoms that I hadn't had in a long time, And so that really helped a lot, is having a partner there that respected some of the hardships that I was going through, even though maybe she didn't understand it at the time or whatever. Yeah. And then once that was all out of my system and everything came, came full circle and now back to normalcy or whatever.
But also just like communicating through that whole transition. Because it was, Stephen was always really the one that we could always kind of count on for his job and everything. So then to kind of make it switch to, now we're equal in it, but at the time it was me, and so it was a lot of
in the beginning.
Pressure in the transition for sure.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah, no, I just am kind of just thinking in my head. It's just kind of
it's a lot.
But it also kind of like I think it just kind of defines kind of who you guys are, right? And kind of going through that, and you having started this and you coming in. I mean, talk about what was kind of the first couple weddings that you guys did, and what was that kind of dynamic like, starting off and being like, okay, like this is for real now.
Yeah, I think for me, I never wanted Steven to feel less than, or I never wanted him to feel like he's the second shooter, or he's my assistant. But it was definitely a learning curve. Because I wanted Steven to like learn without me feeling like I was bossing him around.
Well, you definitely wanted to pay my dues, Yeah. I wanted to learn and do all the, like, carry the bags and, help with lighting and do everything that, any other second shooter would have to do, or anybody would have to do to get their way back up to the top, so, but I did start out with like 6D, so
yeah,
I'm spoiled.
Yeah, you definitely didn't start out with the 40D Craigslist camera that I did, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of funny to think, like starting off and kind of all the different stuff you have to go through, and then Steven joins it. It's an interesting dynamic in that. Kind of looking back, how I know we're all kind of. I'm super judgmental of like my past work. Like, how were those first weddings, and how do they hold up now? Kind of looking back.
Oh my gosh. To be honest, I don't cringe really at looking like back at anything, because I feel like we've always kind of had that like more classic style. But I mean, definitely like it was funny. We just did a wedding for a good friend of mine in Texas, and she second shot for me a couple weddings in the beginning. And it's funny to think about like that first wedding I shot when we lived in Texas was like at a VFW with like tablecloths covering refrigerators and stuff. And, then I went back to shoot her wedding. It was so beautiful. But gosh, that first shoot together was a lot of fun. But, it's nice that we do our own editing and Steven does all the culling. So I think for him, it has been really helpful to kind of see like areas to improve in and different things. But before he ever shot with me and we kind of decided like, we're going to go for this, he was already doing amazing and taking tons of pictures of the kids and really practicing to even see if it was like something that was
feasible.
Yeah, right. Something that was even going to work for us. But it's just kind of been really natural for us. I think it kind of just depends. Like our personalities, it just works for us. Versus like some couples will say like, there's no way we could ever shoot together. But for us, it's just kind of been really pretty natural. And we have like designated things that we both do wedding day where we both lead so that neither of us feels like, oh, I'm the primary and I'm the second shooter. We try to make it like more equal for each other, if that makes sense.
Amanda's really good at the directing, and she's really good at the editorial style and getting everybody's table shots and everything like that. I'm pretty good at doing the candids and catching up with the dudes and all those good things.
Yeah. Whereas like Steven's more the one that manages like the gear, and he's definitely the more meticulous one. I think he gets that from his Army days. So he's the one that's like organizing the gear and cleaning the gear and getting everything charged. And whereas I'm more of the one that's like communicating with the couples and kind of guiding them through the day, so to speak.
Yeah, because I mean, and we talk on the podcast a lot about, the other challenges that come into running whatever vendor category you are, photo, video, florist. And there's so many other things than just taking photos, right, that you guys have to, work on and deal with. So like, what are some of the challenges like you guys work through? Just because I do think like people, part of the people that listen to this podcast are vendors and part of couples, but like for vendors out there, like what are some things that you're always kind of trying to work on or that you guys find that you struggle with and to make better?
I mean, outside of just shooting is like, for us is finding a good balance with the kids, we have 2 little kids. So for us, summertime is a little bit challenging just because we're trying to always find like a balance between personal life and work life. I mean, I can remember when I first started the business and Steven was still in the military, we had polar opposite schedules and I would edit until, which I'm sure a lot of our friends do, the middle of the night, trying to get things done. And now we don't do that ever because we're trying to find a good balance between like work life and family life. But for me, I think sometimes it's hard with engagement season because I tend to do the engagement sessions and then Steven tends to be, really busy at home with the kids. And then wedding day, what do you think? What are like some good challenges?
Wedding day, I'm not sure. I think the biggest challenges for us is that the engagement, thing and like the balance, doing. She does a lot of the sessions and I stay a lot with the kids. But then wedding day, it's all equal. And then our roles after that are equal, you know, as far as the calling and the editing and all that stuff. So,
Yeah, I'm always kind of blown away by people that have, you know, kids and trying to find that balance. And I think even when I think we were talking, like when we were working last, I'm like, I don't know how people, like, it's hard enough with Dorothy being a teacher, and I couldn't imagine trying to deal with, you know, trying to make that balance. And like you said, especially during the summer, like it's got to be, you know, trying to balance between getting as many weddings as you guys can, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny. We try to do, we call it like our Monday roundup. And so typically every Monday we kind of pre-plan the week and what it's going to look like. So I think that's, for me, I could just kind of take little blocks of time throughout the week and make it work.
Mm-hmm.
For Steven, he needs a little bit more structure. And so, you know, we kind of split our days where like one day is Steven's editing or calling day. And then the next day, while I'm with Avery, and then the next day, you know, it's my day. So we feel like we both have like good undivided attention to work and to the kids, so that we feel like we're not just ignoring them.
And then for me, changing my work location helps a lot. Like sometimes I'll work upstairs in our office, or sometimes we'll go outside and work in the camper or whatever. You know, changing up workspace always helps a lot for, you know, just doing our job and just getting a different change of scenery. That helps a little bit. Yeah.
So yeah, talk about kind of, obviously we've kind of your home life, and we kind of been talking about, you know, kids and you guys are living gig harbor. Kind of just paint a picture of kind of what does the home life of Lloyd photographers look like.
Oh my gosh! So we have 2 kiddos. Maddox is 6 and he's in kindergarten. So our mornings are usually they're not too hectic, but usually our mornings consist of family stuff.
Yeah.
And then Avery is 2, almost 2.5.
We'll take turns taking the Maddox to school in the morning.
She's at home all the time, which we feel really lucky to get to do that because we don't have to have traditional daycare. So throughout the daytime, we try to usually take Mondays off to kind of catch up, and depending on like what our weekend was like, which I think again comes back to that balance. Like it's hard sometimes, but you have to make time to have time off. You have to,
right,
otherwise you don't have that sense of normalcy, like,
or you don't get time
others do.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Mm-hmm. And then, the rest of our day when Maddox is in school, we are rotating between, one of us usually has Avery and the other is working. Mm-hmm. And that usually works really great for us. And then we actually try to stop working pretty much by the time our son gets home from school. And that's really worked for us because we try to stay really consistent with that. And that helps us not get behind. But outside of weddings, we love camping. We just got a camper. Mm-hmm. Well, it's in the shop, but we'll talk about that later. We just moved to Gig Harbor this last year, and we just love it here. I'm born and raised in Washington, and Steven was born in New Mexico and lived all over Texas. And so we love to just kind of like explore this new town that we moved to and be outside with two crazy dogs. But that's kind of our little life in a nutshell.
And Steven is, I know, an avid skateboarder, which has kind of led us to where we're at today. Why don't you walk us through that and kind of your plans for the summer?
Yeah. So, well, this summer I'm going to be wearing a cast, most likely due to a skateboarding accident. I was looking back to check on my son and my brother-in-law, and turned back, hit a patch of rocks, and hit the dirt.
Oh my gosh.
So I broke my arm, but I did learn how to shoot one-handed, and I am left-handed. So that does help. And it does help to have really big hands to grip the camera and stuff. So, and we wear the hold fast straps. So if I ever drop the camera or anything, it'll be fine.
Yeah, it should be a little bit of a transition for the summer, just because Steven tends to shoot like the, 7200, or he has his kind of specific lenses he likes to shoot, and I tend to shoot more of prime. So it's going to be interesting, kind of mixing it up.
Maybe switch roles a little bit as far as the lenses goes, just so I don't have to hold up a big telephoto all day.
And hopefully he won't be in a cast all summer. I mean, we'll find out tomorrow, but hopefully it should only be through July or so.
Yeah, I mean, but it just speaks to kind of your guys in, the perseverance, I can't even talk, but like here we are, we're breaking our elbow. We're trying to figure out like how to, get into the thing so we can go photograph and not even missing the beat. Right. I mean, that's I think that's kind of the unsung, just being like a wedding vendor. Right. Like, I was even talking to my neighbor over the weekend about someone was sick or something. He's like, you really really can't miss anything, right? Like you can't, like if you're sick, you can't. And like, and I've only lived here for 3 years, but I think he's like finally getting that, you know, but it's like you guys, like you have commitments in the weekend and like here this happens and, you know, it's not even a second thought, right? You just got to keep going forward.
I mean, at first I was like, really? I mean, I kind of figured like this is ultimately going to happen, but, you know, it was kind of just one of those things where it was like, okay, like, let's figure out what we're going to do. Like, you know, we can still shoot. We know you can. I mean, there's photographers that shoot permanently left-handed and totally rock it. Yeah. So it was one of those things where it was like, okay, let's call our brides whose weddings are right away so they can hear our voice and know everything is okay. But I mean, this isn't the first time we've had something like this happen. We just got a Aussie Doodle in December, and we were literally walking out the door to shoot a wedding for 2 WNBA players, and she knocked Avery down and broke her leg. And we were like, really? It was like 2 minutes.
We were literally walking out the door to go to Seattle. Yeah.
But, you know, that's life. Like, life still carries on. Life still happens, whether you're shooting a wedding or not. So, you know, you just have to kind of roll with the punches, and things kind of work themselves out. And
I'm left-handed, so I was excited to, you know, get that camera left-handed and try it.
What did you guys have to do that with Avery, and how did that end up?
Well, you know, we're pretty lucky. We have quite a few really great babysitters, and you know, both of our moms live relatively close by. So it was literally, you know, Maddox saved a babysitter, and we called my mom, and she met us at the doctor's office, got her checked in, and then continued on downtown. And you know, it was kind of those things where, like, in the moment, as a mom, I had a little bit of mom guilt, like, oh my gosh, my daughter literally just broke her leg, and I'm leaving to go shoot a wedding. But that is the commitment you make when you commit to shoot someone's wedding. It's not like it's something you can be like, oh, let's reschedule that.
Right.
You know, it has to continue on. Yeah. But it was just kind of one of those moments where, you know, we parked and it was like, okay, she's in good hands. She's with my mom. Everything's fine. Let's move on with the day. And I can remember one of the brides emailed me after and was like, gosh, like, you have never even known that happened to you guys. You were so stoic and good about it. And like, we really appreciate you not making it, you know, affect your mood or whatever, which is not easy, but yeah.
Oh, I couldn't imagine. Talk to me about what was your guys' wedding like?
Oh my gosh. So, we got married, at our family cabin up by Stevens Pass, just like on the lawn. It was really simple. So kind of long story short, Steven proposed on 4th of July, and he was scheduled to deploy second week of August. So we planned our wedding in 6 weeks, which we didn't know at the time how big of a deal that was. Like, 6 weeks, my poor mom. So yeah, it was just a really simple wedding. My dad was terminally ill at the time, and so it was also kind of something we wanted to do quick so that he could be there. And then literally we had the wedding, went on our honeymoon, and then parted ways at the airport. I came back to Washington and he flew off. But like 2 days before the wedding, they canceled his orders and sent him to be a recruiter. So it was I didn't end up deploying,
but I ended up going to recruiting school right after our honeymoon.
Yeah.
So you were still gone for an extended time.
Yeah. Yep. And then
we moved to Texas
we got we got stationed to Texas right after that. So Amanda was asked to pick up and leave.
But that's kind of where the business all got started. So I shot my first weddings. Well, for my first wedding in Washington, but it really got started in Texas and Austin area. So.
And then how did you guys kind of make the decision to come up to Gig Harbor?
So I think for us, I mean, you know how the Seattle housing market is, it's insanity. And so we wanted to be able to get, you know, more for our money, but also Maddox was starting school and we were looking for like good schools. I don't know, you know, we don't have to commute every day. So it's nice to be in a community that's just a little slower pace.
I'm originally from New Mexico, so that kind of helped me have a little bit more space and a little, Gig Harbor is not quite as fast as Seattle.
And you can take the ferry if the traffic's crazy.
And we don't commute every day, so the bridge toll and all that stuff is not quite as big a deal for us. Yeah.
What was it like, kind of the differences between shooting the weddings, you know, in Texas and then coming up here?
I would say the biggest difference is like the formalities. I mean, for me, you know, I'm a Pacific Northwest girl at heart, so when they first moved to Texas, people would like say I sounded Canadian or call me a Yankee or that sort of thing. But outside of that, it's interesting. Like Texas weddings are very formal, at least they were in my experience. So like every bride does like bridal photos and that sort of thing, which you don't really see here very often. Right. Every wedding has barbecue, which you'd think was great at first, but you get kind of sick of it. But I mean, they're really similar. I guess the biggest difference is that the time of year, you know, here we're like packing in the weddings spring through early fall, and in Texas, they're not even shooting in the summer because it's just too hot.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like having to kind of move, you know, kind of start a business there and then move it to, you know, the Seattle area? Was there a lot of challenges with that?
Yeah, I thought that was definitely really challenging. I mean, when we knew we were moving to Texas, Instagram wasn't really a thing yet. Facebook was really like where you promoted yourself back before, you know, they limited you so much on how you did that. And so when we transitioned to Washington, it was just a lot of, you know, changing your marketing, changing your SEO for blogging and that sort of thing. It wasn't too bad because we knew we were coming back to Washington probably like 6 months or so beforehand. So I really started promoting myself as a Washington wedding photographer well before we even moved back here. But that first year was really challenging because I was, like 30 weeks pregnant with Maddox when we moved back home. So I didn't really go like full force for probably another year after we got back.
Do you feel like you guys are good in terms of kind of marketing and promoting that? A lot of photographers come on here and they always say, well, that's something I need to get better at, or I need to do, like, do you guys feel like you're pretty good at kind of promoting who you guys are and kind of finding the ideal couples that you want to work with?
I think so. I mean, I think we always talked about how we ultimately wanted to get to where we were vendor and venue and planner based on our referrals. And I think that we're pretty much there.
We're getting there, yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, it's nice when you have like planners or venues that believe in you and what you do and the service that you provide, and just refer you. I think that's awesome. But it's also like a balance of like keeping up with blogging and, you know, current work online and that sort of thing for people. Yeah. But yeah, I think so, but it's still always a challenge to kind of, it's like that keeping up with the Joneses mentality of posting on Instagram enough and am I sharing enough? Am I blogging enough? I think we do a pretty good job. Of course, we could always do
probably do
better.
A little better. Yeah. It's just if we had more time, basically.
But that's interesting. You talking about kind of wanting to have the venue and, you know, planner kind of focus referral thing. I don't know if I've ever kind of had anybody kind of say it like that and talk about kind of the networking, but more just the relationships you have to build that way. Talk about how, I mean, obviously how important that is and how do you guys go about kind of establishing those bonds?
I mean, I think at first, you know, you're kind of like a small fish in this like huge pond of so much incredible talent. But over time, once you start kind of building those relationships, I think you have to not be afraid to say like, hey, I think we work great together. Like, how can we do this more often together? And also like, it's interesting, but you know, photographers are your competition, but they're also like your biggest resource for referring to each other. You know, we can only shoot one wedding in one day. So to be able to send those referrals, I think, to other photographers is huge. And then, you know, I would say like a huge percentage of what we book is actually from other photographers, which is interesting.
And then giving everybody images, of course, because everybody participated in the wedding. So giving all the vendors images for their marketing. And
really following through with that. I mean, I think often photographers say, oh, I'll give you photos and, you know, and then they don't, or they forget, which it's understandable. Life gets really busy, but, you know, those photos are so important to all the vendors that participate. And then that's huge because then those people are posting the photos and then in turn, you know, referring you or that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah, no, and like you said, it's tough. Even the photographer I was with yesterday, like it was the same thing, you know, trying to get info to get people to send images and stuff. And like, I think when we worked together, like, well, I think I was waiting on Katie and Chase for something. But like I hadn't even like touched their video really. And then here I got, you know, the email with like all the vendor gallery and stuff. And, you know, it just in like a super timely manner. And obviously it's all sent out, you know, appropriately. So that's obviously something that, everybody, like you said, every single person that's kind of part of that team, I think sometimes some of those vendors kind of get left out or kind of forgotten when it comes to like kind of crediting everybody.
Yeah. And we've probably accidentally forgotten people, but we don't mean to. You know?
Yeah.
We want to include everybody that was included in that day. Yeah.
I think for us, it's to make sure that we do it, and we're like cohesive with that. Like we just have it as part of our workflow. That as soon as we send the gallery to the couple, they know we're going to send it to all the vendors, and that kind of helps like bridge the gap between just the bride sending them to all the vendors and then them not knowing what to do with them or whatever. It's kind of trying to get ahead of a bit, so to speak.
Absolutely. So this whole time we've been talking, I kind of just have your website off to the side. I've kind of been staring at it. It says, established 2010, which is a long time. I think in like the Seattle, I think in the Seattle market nowadays, you have a lot of photographers and stuff in the last couple of years. And, it's obviously getting like hugely saturated. So talk about kind of how have you been able to, why you think you've had success for so long, and kind of how do you keep, I know that that's a tough one, but like, how do you, and then, or an easier one would be like, how do you keep it fun? But obviously you have your wonderful husband next to you every day, but yeah, how do you?
I know Stephen wants to talk about this too. I think for us, like just continuing to be consistent and also true to what we believe in and how we shoot and the final product that we deliver, that really hasn't changed this whole time. I mean, for us, we've just always wanted our couples to really enjoy their experience with us. And we genuinely really care about them, and try to kind of keep up with them. And then just kind of keeping our style consistent. So I think it's hard, like different trends come out and different things, and you're like, oh, maybe I should do that, but I don't really want to. So kind of just trying to stay consistent and true to who we are and what we believe in, I think has kind of really carried us through.
Reiterate for sure, staying with the classic style that we always that we like to have, because we want your photos to look good to you in 20 years and 30 years. That's for sure important. And then being personable to everybody, understanding that it's somebody's wedding day and that you don't have to greet them with your camera in their face or whatever, right away, and that you can be a human being too, and share the moment with them. And I think that's part of being a good photographer, is being a good human being and just sharing in the moment with the family, sharing in the moment, even if it is a little hectic and somebody's getting chippy with you. If you can just smile and still be in the moment, that's how how it's fun.
Well, so we were just talking about this. The kids spent the night with my mom after our wedding on Saturday, which that doesn't happen very often. Usually we're like, getting them and bringing them home and putting them to bed. So we had like some extra time to just kind of visit, and we were just talking about just how we're able to like have each other to kind of, I don't know, I think
to each other,
being able to like talk about the day, and we have like, we always get coffee every morning before our wedding, and like if we don't, I might panic, like I'm jinxing us or something. But yeah, I mean, just trying to keep it fun, and this is all we do, and so we take that really seriously, but we also try to make it really fun, because in reality, like we are spending a good amount of time away from the kids during the great summer season and that sort of thing, and I think that helps us kind of just keep plucking along.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, no, because obviously Dorothy doesn't, she's a teacher. And so I'm stuck with like my assistant with like his head buried in his phone after, our wedding's like mad or whatever. And I don't get that same kind of wonderful venting. Like, let's talk about the day. It's normally me just yelling over the steering wheel while they're kind of looking down on their phone and not really paying attention. But that sounds wonderful.
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember whenever it was just me shooting and I had like second shooters, we part ways for the evening, and then I come home and Steven would be like, he wasn't there. So he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. You're talking about like just the day or the drama that happens or all that sort of stuff. It's fun to be able to understand each other for sure.
Yeah, and I do think when you were talking about kind of the changing styles or staying timeless, like I do think that is one of the hardest things nowadays, where there's so much competing style, and especially in video, and I know photo, like there's always something new, and with video there's always a new trick, and there's always a new guy with a Ronin stabilizer running around. There's always like it's and like the cost of entry, and everyone's so. I do think it's hard, I think, for everybody to kind of like do what and kind of stick with it and kind of maintain doing that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. So this last summer, I don't know. I think I was kind of like, we've always shot Canon, which I love Canon, nothing wrong with Canon. But it kind of gets like monotonous with the gear sometimes. And so I remember last summer, I was like, Steven, what would you think if we sold all our gear and moved to Nikon in the middle of the season? And he was like, are you serious? Really? And we did. We sold all of our gear one day. And then Steven like met all these different photographers locally, and then literally went up to Kenmore Camera and got all new Canon gear or Nikon gear. And at first it was like, this is insane, but it's actually been really fun to kind of, mix things up a little bit.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. That sounds terrifying.
It was terrifying on Thursday. By Saturday, we had it down. We're good.
Yeah. Keeping it interesting.
What are some things that you kind of looking at this still being in business for so long, and what are some things that you used to really stress about in terms of like, business stuff? It could be photography or business stuff that, you don't stress about now, stuff that maybe you used to think was like this huge deal that maybe nowadays you're like, well, just kind of things that you've learned as you've gone.
Probably the off season. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
would say that was the biggest stress for me was the off season.
Sure.
Because I've just used to being busy 24/7 constantly. And that was like the hardest transition for me out of the Army, was just having an actual downtime season.
Yeah. I think just learning to like appreciate that season. And then also just, being mindful of the highs and lows of booking seasons financially, just so that it feels consistent for us year round, and to, freaking out that it's, wintertime and it's a little slower, that sort of thing. But
that's kind of dissipated as well.
Yeah. I think for us too, like now we're kind of getting to where we really enjoy that season, because that's the time now that especially as Avery gets older, we have, she's not napping as much and that sort of thing. And so it's exciting to have that off season to, do the things that, let's be honest, we don't get to really do in the summer because we're so busy.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that balance, and like come like, I don't know, for us it's like kind of like October, and then you get into November and I'm like, I don't know like what to do with like my time. So kind of in terms of bookings and looking at weddings and couples, who are the kinds of people that you find are attracted to your work, that enjoy you guys and your process and your style, and who are the couples you like to work with?
And I'm sure this answer is different for Steven, but for me, I think my ideal client is the couple that truly trust us to do our thing. I mean, we send a questionnaire that kind of helps guide them through certain things. And of course there's like, certain must-have photos and that sort of thing. But I think we're in this like era of Pinterest and Instagram and everything. And I think, sometimes brides tend to kind of overthink it a little bit. So for me, the couples that just trust us and know like that we're going to cover everything and give us that freedom to be more creative, that's, I feel like, for me, where I really flourish.
I agree. Definitely the ones that, like she said, aren't trying to, the photo list and everything are fine, but just definitely like, not trying to tell us exactly where to take the photos because the lighting might be good somewhere else or something.
Yeah. I mean, our wedding on Saturday, the bride, we try to be like mindful of what they want and what they need. But she kept saying, whatever you think is better for lighting, that's where I want to be. And we're like, that's awesome, because, I think like the average person doesn't think about that sort of stuff. And for me, like lighting is everything. I mean, I would rather shoot in a not so lovely location with amazing lighting than, a beautiful location with terrible lighting. And so couples that just kind of just let you do your thing, I would say are our ideal client.
Right.
Yeah, so we had the mother of the bride yesterday was like getting ready, and then even during the first look, like was peeking and coming up, and and I was like, Mom, like we got this, like we really do, and like because sometimes it's it's the couple and sometimes it's the family, and you're like, guys, like we really know what we're doing here. Like I just kept like looking, like giving her the thumbs up, like we got it, but she kept the whole time we were at the hotel until we left. She kept I could see her peeking around the corners and stuff, and he was just like, no, we got it.
Yeah, not overthinking it. I know. I always like, we do a lot of most of our consults like on the phone or Skype, and whenever couples are just like being so relaxed and they sound just so joyful. I always tell them, like, keep doing what you're doing. You'll enjoy the process so much more. It'll be so noticeable in your photos and in your video. And it's just easier on all of your vendors in general when you hire people that you believe in and know that they can do their job.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Kind of, so now looking into 2019 and beyond, I mean, are you guys pretty optimistic still? I mean, I know I've just seen a lot lately with like photography and video and saturation and what's going on and ghosting and bookings and stuff. Like, do you feel like it's anything, or is it just kind of life is normal and we just kind of keep moving on?
I mean, I think the ghosting thing has definitely become kind of a bummer. I was just talking to Lori Lassie about that, like, how it only takes like a second to just let people know if you decide to go a different direction. But I mean, our season is like consistent like it normally is. 2019 is a little different for us just in the sense that it's our probably busiest season, but yet it's the most spread out, which is awesome. So we actually have like some
Sundays.
summer Sundays off, which is cool. But then we have, also like a super busy winter, which I think it seems like the trends are kind of moving in that direction where there's like more winter weddings because, there's so many brides and just not enough dates to get married, really.
Probably.
Yeah, not enough dates and not enough venues. Yeah, because I just have seen stuff the last month, and it always seems like you're like the voice of reason that comes in and is like, no, like we're good, like everything's going good. So I just figured I had you in person, so I would ask what you think.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking consistent into next year. Like our trends really haven't changed. I keep moving my chair and it's lovely loud. But yeah, I think, there's always going to be like those seasons like Black Friday where, Aunt Sally gets a new camera and now she's going to start a business. And I think when the era of like everyone using their iPhones became a big thing at weddings and stuff, and that used to drive me crazy. But now it's kind of like those things are going to come and go all the time and you kind of just have to roll with it. I mean, Steven's the most like patient person I've ever met. And so nothing really bothers him. But yeah, there's always going to be like new people coming into the industry, but I think that's also good. It kind of mixes things up and just staying consistent to the service you provide and continue to refer people that you believe in comes full circle for sure.
What is kind of as we get close to wrap up here, what is your next kind of goals moving into next year beyond, besides obviously just more bookings?
So I think Steven and I realistically know we're not getting any younger. We're moving into those mid 30 marks. So for us, like we've really thrown around the ideas of doing some teaching and kind of seeing where we could take that and ultimately maybe shooting a little bit less, not because of any reason other than just being available a little bit more for the kids as they get into sports and, the longevity of shooting 50 weddings a year on our bodies and that sort of thing. So that's kind of where we're hoping to move towards in the next couple of years is shooting maybe just a little bit less and then opening the possibility of doing some teaching.
You definitely always want to shoot weddings though, for sure.
Yeah.
Before we go, what would be your biggest piece of advice for, it could be a photography business, it could be anybody, trying to be an entrepreneur, kind of trying to do their own thing. What would be, and I'd be curious what each of you say, kind of your biggest advice or not biggest, but a piece of advice.
One big piece of advice is always practice makes perfect. And don't be scared to make mistakes because you're going to make mistakes. So you just keep trudging forward. Don't ever give up is the biggest thing I can tell you is just don't ever give up. Just choose to do it every day.
Yeah, I think for me, just still trying to make sure that you're finding the joy in what you're doing. There's going to be days that are just amazing. And like any job, there's days that aren't amazing and you leave feeling a little discouraged. But just making sure to keep finding that joy in what you're doing to help you be creative. And then also you can do whatever you want to do. You just have to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
I like that.
Perfect. You guys are great. This is awesome. Thank you guys so much. And I know it's just been no, it's just been hectic and you guys are so busy and I really do appreciate you guys taking the time and like I said, doing this with a sleeping baby and everything else. If people want to learn more about you guys and your photography and personality and story and everything else, where would you have them check out?
I mean, our website is lloydphotographers.com. And then to see more of like the day-to-day life, we definitely try to do a lot on Instagram. So that's Stephen Lloyd Photog and Amanda Lloyd Photog.
Perfect. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the podcast today. If you are a wedding vendor and are interested in participating in an upcoming episode, you can go to www.bestmadevideos.com/podcast guest, and that would be a great way to fill out that questionnaire. Would be a great way to start. I didn't make you guys do that because I know you, and I've been bugging Stephen about this for like a year and a half. So you guys didn't. You lucked out and didn't have to do that. So
the VIP guys.
You the VIP red carpet out. I appreciate you guys. I really do so much. Thank you. And perfect. This has been another episode of Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. Check back next week for another wedding vendor interview. Thanks so much.